Well, Pascal, back in 1979, we saw Mad Max, quite an exciting road movie, followed a couple of years later by Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. Mel Gibson, of course, starring in those probably relatively low-budget films, but actually took the world by storm, if I remember rightly. And then in 1985, a bit of a budget increase for the third of the films, Mad Max 3 Beyond the Thunderdome, with Tina Turner wearing quite a lot of chainmail, if I remember rightly, and people bouncing around inside a dome. Three very good films. And then in 2015, along came the sequel we never knew we needed, and that is Mad Max Fury Road. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Can you remember this one?
Oh, do you know, I reckon that in 2015, this was the movie I was most excited to see. I mean, I've been caught by the marketing, and we're going to talk about it in a moment, but I just felt excited about, the almost the anticipation and going to the movies. And after that, I just couldn't wait to own the Blu-ray because I couldn't quite believe what I had just seen, what my eyes and ears had been exposed to for the better part of 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it was just relentless, wasn't it? As soon as it started, for almost the entire duration of the film, there wasn't a moment, and I think I may have said this about Speed, which we reviewed a few episodes back. That's another film that felt a bit like this, but this one genuinely almost needed to have captions come up on the screen every 30 seconds saying, "Remember to breathe," or something like that, because I did find myself, it was just so relentless and so exciting and so in your face. Special effects, jump cuts, editing, just absolutely incredible, pushing you forward, never letting you rest. A visual and audio spectacle of like no other. And I'm sure that I read that it was voted by many people as one of the best action movies of that 10-year period, or at least of 2015.
I'm not surprised at all. I think you're right. It was a spectacle, and also it was outrageous. I mean, some of the cast and some of the vehicles, the way they were shaped, the design, the use of the color in that Namibian desert and desert. Sorry, not desert. That's probably because we're approaching food time. But it's also, I remember thinking you could pause the movie at any time and frame this and put it on your wall because it was such, visually so arresting, really, and interesting. And what I liked about it as well is, to your point, it was so well filmed and so well edited that you could keep up with it because the action was relentless, but it was so well framed and so essentially kind to the audience despite the pace that it wasn't like some of those action movies sometimes, Roger, where the camera is shaking and they cut so rapidly that you just don't know what's happened, but you have a feeling that something has happened. You could literally watch and see plainly what they were trying to share with you. And the different characters, and there was some really horrible characters. There was obviously some much nicer one, and also this sense of real dread of, if this doesn't go well, this is not going to be good for the characters that I'm supporting here.
Yeah, I mean, the editing part that you just mentioned there, I did a little bit of research into the film before we came online, and one of the things that the editing is absolutely astonishing. The number of cuts between angles and between scenes per minute in this film is one of the highest ever in film history, apparently. But beyond that, I mean, the film was shot, as most films are, and you know more about the technicalities of this than I do, but the film was shot 24 frames per second. But they edited it because sometimes certain shots, they didn't think 24 frames a second was actually, there was too many. So they would actually reduce the number of frames per second for some shots just to either make it feel as if it was faster, so that maybe there was a bit more motion blur or something like that. But the editing was so pinpoint precise that you could almost say it was obsessive.
Yeah, I think they worked at all level. They worked on the color, they worked on the costume, they work on the scene setting, the characters. I mean, what they wear, the way they look. I mean, some of them have been defaced literally by special effects. Others look all right. But for me, back to what you were saying, this sequel that we never knew we needed. I was happy with the original Mad Max trilogy. In fact, I own the three films, and I've watched them regularly. Interestingly, I remember in 1979, my dad went to see it at the movies without me. I was only 10 then, so you can understand that. I remember being quite upset because, of course, it was making the headline, Mad Max, that kind of indie Australian film that you had to be over the age of 16, which is unheard of. In France, we didn't have the kind of the strict regime that you have maybe in the UK with classification. I think I probably saw Road Warrior on VHS. So the first time I went to the movies with my dad and my siblings was to see Beyond the Thunderdome. So fond memories of Mad Max as a kind of post-apocalyptic and techno noir, style. And then out of nowhere, but that makes sense, kind of 30 years after Beyond the Thunderdome, we hear about Mad Max Fury Road. And we're like, okay, why not? First, we're a bit upset because Mel Gibson is not in it. But then we see the first visuals, and I don't know about you, but I got so excited.
Yeah, and as you say, all those incredible cars and wagons and tanks and what you can't even describe them as cars and wagons and tanks, can't you? Vehicles, incredible vehicles. But what I hadn't realised, you said 30 years between Thunderdome and Fury Road, but they actually did start planning this in 1997.
Oh, really?
And I believe that, some of the vehicles that appeared in Fury Road were actually built as early as 2003. So this film really took a long time to put together. And maybe that's why it comes across as so incredibly detailed on screen, because they didn't just put this together in 18 months. It was years and years and years in the writing, in the creation of the vehicles, in the creation of the script and all of that sort of thing. So, yes, there might have been 25 years between the actual releases of the films, but there certainly wasn't 25 years of inactivity in between.
Isn't that incredible for George Miller, the director, to kind of stay on the project? And that's the life of a content creator. I'm sure that at our level, we have things that are not quite there yet, and one day they'll come to life. I think for me that was also part of the excitement when I discovered through the press releases and so on that George Miller, the original director, was working on it, and of course he'd put together a great crew around the production. I think the announcement, once it was revealed as part of the teasers, that the bad guy was the original bad guy of the first Mad Max. So you had also a bit of nostalgia. Of course, I would argue, Roger, that you can watch Mad Max Fury Road on its own without having seen the first three, and that's still I think you'd be blown away.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think it is definitely a standard. I'm pretty sure if I think back, I think I saw Mad Max 2 first. I think I then went back after many years when I got a bit older perhaps and watched Mad Max the original and then Thunderdome. So yeah, I definitely agree. It's a standalone movie and it makes sense, and you don't need to know the back history. It's definitely one of those films where it treats both audiences with the equal amount of respect that they deserve. And so we obviously like the film, and
do we? Do you think we've got a message?
Yeah, we obviously like the film, and it's likely I might watch it again tonight or tomorrow. But what about the marketing?
Okay, well, we've done the research. So what we're going to do for our viewers and listeners is go through the chronology so we don't miss anything. But also, if we do have missed something, do get in touch, and we make sure that we add that into future episodes. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, I think when the teasers went out, which was essentially just still photography, and they made the covers of movie magazines like Empire and Entertainment Weekly, I think in general people were not impressed because, again, nobody's asked for the sequel. And of course, we realized that it was Mel Gibson. In the main role, it was Tom Hardy. But then again, if you'd seen previous efforts from Tom Hardy, there shouldn't be a concern. But so I think people just went a little mad on social for all the wrong reasons in June.
Yeah,
2014.
Yeah. I can understand that, but Then there was the first trailer which they put out at San Diego Comic-Con, and people went mad again because then they saw how, oh my God, this is actually going to be pretty good.
I mean, that was the summer 2014, which is interesting why they're going to do this year with Comic-Con, because it was cancelled last year. They tried to do it online. It didn't really work, so perhaps they've learned a lesson. But for fans, of course, it was San Diego. Then within days, it was on YouTube. And I watched it so many times thinking, what am I seeing here? Because even then you had already some of the action scene with the car chase sequence. You had also, do you remember that scene where people are on those poles that are kind of swinging back and forth, up and down to try and capture some of the ladies that Mad Max and Charlize Theron is actually trying to protect. And I was thinking, what have I just seen here? And if this is just a trailer, I want to see this. Of course, we had to wait nearly a year for that. But yeah, that was good fun.
And there was a lot of social media activity inviting fans to unlock exclusive content. And of course, by doing that, they're creating more anticipation and more excitement about what ultimately is going to get released.
Yeah, I mean, they did it that well. I think it will be a bit of a dated practice now in 2020, 2021. But this idea of here's a still photography or a strange message. If you want to see what's behind it, like, comment, and share. I think it was of its time. And I think in the context of a film release, I think it's absolutely fine to have that kind of gamification. But then by then, what really happened after that was, a few months later, by spring 2015, we get the proper trailer, the one that reveals the storyline and also the release of the posters. And much to our surprise, Mad Max may be the title and the typography, but the main character is that of Charlize Theron, known later on, as we'll know, as Imperator Furiosa. And I thought it was such a clever move to put actually a lead character that was a woman.
Yeah, and there's quite a few women in the film, isn't she? I mean, she effectively rescues a whole group of wives of the baddie, I guess, and spirits them all off into the desert, and that's what creates this gigantic vehicle chase that goes on for the majority of the film. But I think it's inclusive of all age groups and all. Just everybody can enjoy this film.
Indeed, and so when you get the Blu-ray, when you look at the poster and so on, she is first, and Max is behind her, because indeed the way the movie is summarized, it's about her and her attempt to essentially escape from the ruler, that she gets help from the drifter named Max.
Yeah. Now, what I hadn't realized, Pascal, and of course the other things that they did was that there was a load of artwork put out. The film had its world premiere May 2015, all the usual places, Cannes Film Festival, came out on Blu-ray. And I remember we bought the Blu-ray the day it came out. But what I hadn't realised until I was doing some research for the film today was that in October 2016, they actually released a black and white version of the film. And the director has been since on record as saying that the black and white version, in his mind, is the definitive version. So I'm actually quite intrigued because it's such a colourful film anyway, and the special effects are amazing. I just can't think of watching it in black and white, but I'll take his word that there must be obviously something special about the black and white version.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, Roger, I thought originally that was a marketing ploy to get more money out of me. The same way other movies have done that, where you can now, so usually they add the black and white version. But when Logan came out, do you remember the Logan, the last Wolverine movie? You could then get the black and chrome, it's called, or black and white version. And other movies have done that. So I thought it was just a ploy. I will confess, however, Roger, I am very fond of black and white in terms of a movie. But then to hear that actually George Miller had wished for the movie to be released in black and white on the big screen, like you, I was thinking, oh my goodness, and you'd have missed all that beautiful landscape and the colours. That would have been very, very interesting indeed.
Yeah, and there was some viral marketing stuff going on as well, wasn't there? I believe that in Toronto, they had a dusty car wash where people were actually allowed to have their own vehicles given the Mad Max treatment. Now, I think that just involved having them covered in dirt and a few stencils. They didn't start trashing them and blowing them up and carving them up into pieces. But you can imagine that must have created quite a lot of social media photo opportunities. So again, it's getting people involved. I just love that sort of thing.
These are good times to market a film because you can be inventive like this because of the distribution of the content. I must confess, I don't know where I've gone for this one, because if there is one chore in life that I hate is washing cars. So the idea of having my car covered in dust with just the bits that says Mad Max coming soon on the passenger doors and so on, then having to wash my car afterwards. But then again, perhaps over there it's fine. The one that they did, which to be expected, is whenever there was a special premiere, they did try and bring props, you could call them, from the movie. So one of Mad Max's car was in display in Sydney outside, obviously the main theatre there, and they had some of the Warboys, some of the baddies stood, and people can take pictures with them and then put them on social media. So I think there was a lot of very simple concept, but that went viral. I think for me, the one that I tend to pick up more and more now, Roger, is also YouTube and its power and its influence really in promoting a film. Because what George Miller did very cleverly, or maybe it was just he didn't get engaged in that conversation, people kept asking him, is it a sequel or is it a reboot? And he never really answered. I think he said something one day, a bit of both. I'm not sure. So, of course, fans of the film, young and old, spent days and days and hours on YouTube arguing whether or not it was a sequel and a reboot, in a process actually probably promoting, of course, the original work from George Miller as well.
I guess when I think about it, it could be either, but the actual reality is I don't care, because it was just a bloody good movie, And I believe that that the marketing of it continues to this day. In last year, Charlize Theron actually did a special socially distanced drive-in screening of the film to raise funds for her charity. The Charlize Theron Africa Outreach Project. So again, 5 years down the line, they're still using the film and its visuals. It's
perfect. It's impeccable timing. Now, if you think about it, so that would have been in its own right a 5-year anniversary, and because it was filmed in Namibia and over part of Africa, that would have been a wonderful time for her effort with the Outreach Project. But that means that this year we're also seeing the 30th anniversary of The Road Warrior. Yeah, because that was released in 1981. So I reckon this is a character that is going to come back either through re-releasing or through rescreening and special events and so on. But for me, what is interesting is this idea of patience. So to what you're describing is George Miller wanted to do something like Fury Road since 1997, and he's been storyboarding, he's been working, he's been talking about it and so on, and actually produced a result in terms of this film 2015 that is simply outstanding.
Absolutely. And I really don't think there's anything else that I can say to actually top that ending there, Pascal. A superb movie, and I'm definitely going to be re-watching it soon.
Likewise.
Even if I just go into the settings on the TV and turn it down and watch it in black and white, rather than actually going out and buying the black and white. Even though I know they'll have tinkered with the visual to make the black and white version more than just turning the colour off on your TV. But you know what I mean. Wow. Wow, another amazing hour of just scintillating conversation about our favourite subjects. Pascal, an absolute pleasure once again to share this hour with you. Everybody who's been watching, everybody who's been listening, thank you so much for tuning into Two Geeks and a Marketing Podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please leave comments on the YouTube channel or on Twitter, wherever you consume your content. Just let us know what you think of the show. Give us feedback, give us tips, give us ideas. Until next time, Go out there and make sure your marketing is done right. I was Roger Edwards and he was Pascal Fintoni.